Welcome to the February 9th, 2023 Monroe Community Coalition meeting. I have hit the record button, so if you do not want to be a part of the public record, now's the time to mute yourself and turn off your camera. Otherwise, join us. We're a group of folks who are here because we care about youth health and wellness, and we feel like it's our responsibility to make sure the community makes progress in these areas. So Tom, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Well, I just welcome everybody like you do, and there's always new things on the table, so there's plenty to discuss and take a look at. But I can't see who's here, so I'm going to have you call out the people. I'm Tom Maxar. I guess I was the co-chair. I don't know who the co is anymore, but of the coalition. So
yeah, so there's just a handful of us here today. A little unusual for a February meeting, but we're joined by Kathy Jackson. Kathy, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Kathy Jackson. I'm the Family Engagement Liaison for the district, and I support Maltby Elementary, Firelands Elementary, Park Place Middle School, and Hidden River Middle School. My position exists to help families make connections with resources in our community and with the school district and to answer information. So glad to be here. Thank you.
And Chris Gray is here.
Hello, Chris Gray. I'm on the board of directors for Housing Hope, and for one more year. They have extended my term for one more year, so glad to do that. And I'll stay on the East County board. So
wonderful. Jacob Grillo, so happy to see you, my friend.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jacob Grillo with Conquer. We're a psychiatry addiction medicine practice here in Monroe.
Thank you. Lee? Maddie Louder?
Oh, I'm sorry, I did not hear you. My name is Maddie Louder. I'm the student assistance professional at Monroe High School.
And we're joined by our friend Mary Myers.
Hello, I'm Mary Myers. I'm a retired RN, a longtime employee of Monroe School District and participant in the Monroe Community Coalition's leadership team. And I'd love to share that we had our first live leadership team meeting last week. And it was exhilarating after, oh my gosh, I think 2 years since we've convened in person. There's something wonderful about that human contact that's not on a screen.
Yeah. Oh, it felt so good.
Yeah.
Aubrey Rudd, nice to see you, my friend.
I'm Aubrey Rudd. I am on the justserve.org board, which helps connect people with volunteer opportunities in the community. And I'm also the communications director for the Snohomish Stake Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I just wanted to let you know that we are running in the our Monroe building, which is just off of Tester Road past the high school, a free English class. We have about 15 people on Tuesday. I just wonder if any of you guys might have clients or people. It's Tuesday nights and Friday nights. Tuesday nights at 7, Friday nights at 6. And it's conversational based. It's through a program called English Connect. So if you guys know anybody, that is something that's happening in our neck of the woods. So yeah, if you guys need any resources or questions, let me know.
Do you have any materials you can send me?
Yeah, sure. I'll send you, I think I have a flyer that you could send out. So yeah,
Perfect.
that sounds great.
And Chris Jury is here with us.
Hi, everyone. Chris Jury. I'm the prevention manager for the ESD, and I get to drop into these every so often. Very happy to do so.
And Amber Mehta.
Hi, I'm Amber Mehta. I'm the student support advocate at Park Place, and Sharon and I were with a student, and she's coming on so we can vouch for each other why we were late. And yeah, I had lots of families that actually asked for those classes, so I'm excited to maybe be able to share that. Thank you.
And Dennis Smith, how are you, my friend?
I'm great, Joe. You're looking good too.
Thank-
I'm Dennis Smith. I'm a retired school psychologist counselor from the Granite Falls School District. I also am on the board of the Granite Falls Community Coalition and work with the Snohomish County Children's Wellness Coalition. And I'm happy to be here attending your coalition. Thank you.
Thank you. So our goal was to give the floor to Maddie Louder, a student assistance professional at Monroe High School. Maddie has a very unique perspective on how youth substance abuse is re-emerging in the schools. We've had historically achieved just unprecedented levels of reduced alcohol and marijuana use, and that came after, you know, at least 10 years of work by this coalition and years of work by the Health and Safety Network Coalition, Healthy Youth Coalition before that. And so looks like things are changing. And what we saw coming out of the pandemic in our 2021 Healthy Youth Survey was actually a continuation of our pre-pandemic data. So for a lot of communities, the pandemic from a behavioral health perspective actually contributed to lower rates of youth substance use as parental monitoring increased and school was locked down. And we saw on the Healthy Youth Survey reductions in both reported depression and anxiety as a result of decreased rigor over that period. At the same time, you know that we are aware of more and more public youth mental health distress as a result of isolation and the shifts. But I think there's a growing consensus that as that distress became more known, parents were better equipped to respond to it since they were at home with their students. So all said, despite for real losses in academic engagement, everything held steady or improved even over our historically low rates in 2018. And so now I think we're in this period where we really are seeing secondary disillusionment as a result of that disaster cascade, or we're seeing a reemerging new normal. And so Maddie's on the ground, and I was hoping she might be able to talk about this with us. And I didn't know Jacob was going to be here, but Jacob, I might ask for your perspective on what's happening with adults in the community too, if you're willing, but no pressure.
Sure. Yeah. Whenever you want me to talk, I'll talk.
All right, Maddie, bring us up to speed. What's happening?
All right, well, lots is happening. I just want to preface this and say that this is my first year working in a school setting. So my background is actually in eating disorders and addiction, but that was mostly with an adult population. So kind of seeing it in a student population and a kid population has been a little bit different shift for me. But that being said, I can definitely feel the impacts as a staff member, as I'm sure other staff members in the school feel the impacts of COVID and how behavioral changes and substance use changes have maybe impacting our students and our youth. But I just want to give a brief overview of the students that I'm seeing. I don't have a nice fancy PowerPoint with data and graphs and all of those things so that you can see the numerical data, but this is going to be more of a qualitative conversations that I'm having with students, conversations that I'm having in groups, conversations that I'm having with staff members, so that you can really kind of see the full scope from a person-to-person level rather than a numbers level, which I think both are valuably important. So first, I just want to start with where my caseload is at right now. So over the course of since September, I've worked with about 56, 57 students. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head right now. I was just dealing with a crisis and then jumped on a call, so I didn't have enough time to pull that up. But that age range mostly is focused in the 9th graders. And Just to put this in perspective, the 9th graders, when COVID hit, were in middle school and they pretty much lost their entire middle school experience. So the social interactions that they had at the middle school level, and then they just were dumped right into the high school. And this is for their first real, true, normal year back in a school setting. With that comes a lot of social anxiety. And I think I hear that echoed in a lot of the students that I'm working with. They choose to use a substance because they're trying to cope with the social aspect and the anxiety that comes up around it. So that's probably one of the major issues that I'm seeing. And a lot of times when we're looking at substance use, I think we can all agree that substance use, there's an underlying factor that's going on there, which happens around stress, anxiety, home life, things of that sort that can impact overall behavior. So 9th graders is probably my biggest population of students that I work with. And then as I go up in the ages 10th, 11th, 12th, they're either getting better at hiding their substances on campus, or they just don't bring it to school because they're smarter than getting caught at school. But my caseload is much smaller as you go up in the age group at the high school. So my main focus when I'm working with these students is not necessarily to tell them to stop using. It's a harm reduction approach. So I'm trying to encourage them to find ways to cope with their stresses or their anxieties that don't have to do with substance use. And we talk a lot about how nicotine use can actually increase anxiety. Weed use can actually increase the risk of having and developing schizophrenia later in life. And how addiction, when it runs in your family, a lot of the students that I might see are students of substance abusing parents or a COSAP student. Those students can also just recognize that, hey, if addiction runs in my family and I'm choosing to use right now, that can have very large impacts on me and the future that I want. So the approaches that I take and a lot of the conversations that I have with students in a one-on-one setting have to do with healthy relationships. Are the peer groups that I'm involved in benefiting me? Are they building me up? Are they encouraging me? Are they helping me make positive choices in my life? Or are these friends maybe encouraging me to use substances? When we walk into the bathroom, are they the ones offering me a vape pen and I'm taking a hit of that vape pen? So we talk about healthy relationships and building that. We also talk about coping skills with our stress and anxiety. And that's actually something in the works that I'm going to start up mid-February, is a coping skills group specifically targeted for our 9th graders, because there's a huge aspect of social emotional learning that I think some of them missed out on in middle school because of not being in a social atmosphere. Refusal skills. So what is my ability to say no if I am offered something? We talk a lot about goals and having maybe values that align with those goals, and does substances fit into those goals or align with those goals? And then talking about reasons not to use. My favorite question to ask a student if they're sitting across from me and they're just going on and on about how this is why I use and this is what my friends choose to use and why they choose to use. I'm like, okay, so if you were sitting in my seat and you were the one who is supposed to be the student assistance professional, what would you say to me if I was you? So I kind of role reverse there. And a lot of the times they have some really great answers of like, well, yeah, my future. I want to focus on my future, or my academics, or my relationships. Building trust with my parents is a huge one. I don't want my parents to mistrust me or not put trust in me because they know I'm using. So I see all of these underlying issues, and I think it's really easy to put in perspective of like, yes, there are students who are using, there are youth who are using, but what are the underlying things of why they are using? So one-on-one conversations are kind of helpful in me gaining perspective in that sense, and opening up just a broader perspective of the choice to use. That being said, social media has been a big conversation with our leadership team as well, of how we can use social media when it comes to influencing students and youth choice to use or to not use. And I went into the ASB classes last week, actually, because I was like, you know what, this is a leadership group of our students, and it's a perfect little focus group to have this conversation about social media usage and how it impacts them. And what I think the biggest takeaway that I learned, also being probably maybe the youngest one on this call as well, is that social media, you can tell people what to think and control what they think by what is posted on social media and what is in your feed. And a lot of students, from what I hear in conversations, a lot of the things they see on social media are things that involve substance use or risky behaviors, or things that might not be the most positive choices for a youth to be making to make choices that are going to benefit the long term or benefit their future. And the other thing that I really noticed is that students are especially focused in the here and now and a sense of belonging. And I think this was another conversation that arose in our leadership meeting too. And actually this morning I stepped into the ASB Inter-High conference, which was all of the Wesco schools coming down to Monroe High School to hear from Christian Page, who's an awesome speaker, building empathy with these leadership students. But he asked the question, what does empathy mean to you and how can we implement it in your school? And I think time after time again, when a student answered, he or she said something along the lines of a sense of belonging and safety in the community. And that social media aspect is their community. That's where they belong. That's where they feel like they can fit in. That's where they feel like they can make connections. And maybe they don't have to do it in person. So it's a protective device for them. So taking that into consideration, I think we'll kind of bridge the gap later when we have a social media conversation around it. But that was something that was really eye-opening to see how much substance use can be in a child's feed or in a youth's feed that can impact their decision to use or not because of peer pressure, because of that sense of belonging and fitting in the school demographic. So all of that to say, things that are in place that I've been working on and projects that are in the works that I'm trying to help a preventative measure at Monroe High School and in the community. So Bearcat Academy classes, all of our 9th grade classes last semester and this semester, which will be implemented in March this semester, are getting the Project Success curriculum, where we're talking about the adolescent brain and how substances can impact the adolescent brain more than a fully developed adult brain, addiction, families, and relationships and healthy relationships with peers and others, as well as coping skills. And fun thing that I worked really hard to get up and running. I have Miss Washington coming to Monroe High School, and she will actually be helping present the coping skills and strategies presentation for all of our 9th grade classes. So it's a fun way for them to engage in a different way. So she'll be at the high school speaking to the Bearcat Academy classes on March 16th and 17th. And then if you want to join the sports medicine club at Monroe High School for their royalty run at Lake Ty, she'll also be there, so you can snap a picture with her. But she's going to be in Monroe for 3 days to spend some time in this community and get to know this community and speak to our students. So I'm really excited about that and to engage the students in that way. Other things that I have in the works right now is to use our ASB students. Like I said, they just had Inter-High, which is a huge conference. They've been making posters and putting up all the things in the school over the last week, but using our ASB students to build a prevention week into Monroe High School so that we can have it this coming spring and be able to promote the community norm of, hey, substance use isn't the coolest thing to have going on here, and promote that sense of belonging of, hey, we're all choosing not to use and engage in those behaviors. So we got that in the works. And then lastly, in order for kids to get plugged in right away from the get-go, I just started a newcomers group this month for all of our students who may be transferring into the district to make some friends, have those connections, get plugged into sports and activities, because as we know, connection is the best form of prevention. So all of those things are in the works. Lots of good things are happening here at Monroe High School, and we're just trying to decrease those post-COVID levels of anxiety that lead to a lot of substance use, especially with our 9th graders coming up from the middle school. I feel like I can use community resources as much as you can use my knowledge of what's happening in the high school. So if anyone has any questions for me or any resources that you feel would be a good connection for me to have to plug students into, whether that's an after-school activity group or maybe mental health services, I think that's one of the biggest needs that I need right now. There's not a lot of mental health resources that I can plug students into in our community at the current moment. So lots of providers are either full at capacity, have a long wait list, and it's really hard to get students who need mental health counseling outside of the school into those offices and into those sessions. So if you have connections there, that's one of the barriers I'm seeing, or any after school activities that students can get plugged into, that would be a huge benefit for me as well. But I'll stop blabbing on. And if anyone has any questions for me, I'm happy to answer some of them.
Any questions for Maddie? Maddie, what are the primary substances you're seeing at MHS?
Primary substance would probably be either nicotine or THC. A lot of students can easily hide those in vape pens, the THC vape pens and the fluids. They'll stick them up their sleeves and tie a rubber band around them. They'll stick them in their undergarments so that if security searches them, then security just searches the backpack. Security doesn't search the student's body. So a lot of times they'll just easily be able to take a hit of their vape pen in between classes and share it with a friend. So those are primary. Dennis, do you have a question?
Yes, Maddie, what's our contact for you to provide you with the information you requested?
Sure, I will drop my email in the chat here.
Okay.
So that you have it.
Thank you.
So Maddie, really appreciate you bringing us up to speed on what you're facing with adolescents at Monroe High School. Jacob, I'm wondering if you can tell us what adult use looks like in Monroe, and if you've seen any changes since or as a result of the pandemic. The floor is yours. Just so glad to have you here.
Thank you, Joe. So I didn't come prepared for anything. I was just tuned in, but so we're developing into a comprehensive co-occurring outpatient treatment facility. So we're going to be eventually offering everything from psychiatry, therapy, treatment, and peer support. Our age limit is really 15 and older is what we're accepting currently. We take all major insurances, including Medicaid insurances as well. We are heavy addiction based, meaning most of my clients have some form of substance use disorder, and most of those clients are addicted to some form of an opiate like fentanyl. And so I do a lot of Suboxone prescribing. I do an injection called Sublocade, which is an injectable form of Suboxone, which works really well for people who don't want to take a medication every day. I've seen how many kids under 18. I probably have about four kids that I've seen in the Sky Valley region for opiate use disorder, and all of them have been very successful. I really actually enjoy getting kids. They're easier patients. Their parents are hard, but the kids are easy. Yeah. And so oftentimes they'll come in and get, I might put them on Suboxone for a couple months, and then we usually take them off. They usually don't need to be on it chronically because their substance use hasn't been as long as some of my other clients. So for me, yeah, fentanyl is the primary drug of choice for adults. Yeah, I don't know what information I can provide to the group that's more beneficially to the context. I guess what I would say is if you have kids that are 15 or older that are having a hard time with their with substance use, then you can definitely refer them to us. There's things we would like to see. I want to start a support group for parents of kids with substance use disorder, things like that. So there are things in the works that we're trying to do. And I don't know if maybe you guys are trying to do stuff too. I don't know everything this group is working on, but yeah, if you guys have questions, feel free to ask them.
Thank you for letting me put you on the spot, Jacob. I really appreciate you. Any questions for Jacob? Mary Myers?
Jacob, I wasn't aware that you were practicing in the community. Where is your office located?
Yes.
And I'd like you had commented on the parents were more challenging than your clients. Are many of your parents addicted as well? And so that's the complicating factor?
No, so some of the parents have a history of substance use disorder, but they're not currently using. The complicating factor is their overwhelming stress and anxiety about the situation, right? And so, we often get many calls from parents until they kind of trust us, which is fine and appropriate, but they just want to make sure their kids are taken care of, and they feel lost themselves, and most of them don't know how to help their kid, and so they just they need just as much support as their kids do most of the time.
I have 2 more questions.
Yeah.
If that's okay, Joe. You talked about having clients who are 15 years of age, so still high school age and up. Do you communicate back with school support personnel in terms of how to best support the school and support the young person in the school environment?
I haven't. I certainly can. I just, I need a release of information from the
Right.
student, right?
I just wondered how that might look. And the other
Yeah.
thing that I have a question about is I had seen a public safety press release that came out about fentanyl use among youth in the North Shore School District, so the broader Bothell area. And it's not something that I've heard concern about locally. And Maddie, you could speak to that. I think you already have inferred that it's not an issue it's not a prominent issue. But there was a lot of conversation about the fentanyl being laced in pills, and that it is being promoted to youth, and Bothell PD wanting to get the word out so parents had a level of awareness that fentanyl was being distributed in the area.
I can answer, and then I would love Maddie to answer that too. But so anything that a kid could buy from a dealer has a good likelihood of being laced with something else. So whether that's benzodiazepine or fentanyl or some other opiate, it's very, very likely that that's happening. Even their marijuana is likely to have that in it these days.
Yeah, I think in the fall we had a little bit of a scare that happened. That was one of the concerns, was that fentanyl was being laced into THC vape pens. And students, oftentimes those who don't have a vape pen because they know they're going to get caught by a parent or just risk having it on them, they'll use a friend's. And the issue that we kept addressing with students and kept bringing up is, hey, even if you know that friend really well, you don't know what's in that vape pen. And that friend, where did that friend get it from? Was it a trusted person, or was it someone who maybe they paid $20 to and they got a vape pen from? Because at the end of the day, these kids are all under the age, so they can't be purchasing these in a store. I did learn though from one of my students that there is a store in Snohomish that doesn't ID after 7 p.m. So that's an issue that has come up. And so you get to learn fun little things about what's happening and the biggest question is how it circulates around the youth pass it along to their friends. And so it's by word of mouth that this word is traveling. But that was a concern in the fall, that there might be fentanyl being laced into THC pens, because we had a couple incidents where we had to call the paramedics at the high school.
One thing I would note too is that just anecdotally, any patient that I have who's developed a severe opiate use disorder, like a pretty severe one, all started alcohol or marijuana before the age of 15. Almost every single one that I can think of. And I've seen hundreds of patients with the same story.
Yeah, Jacob, you touch on the primary mission of the coalition is to prevent or reduce substance use, to prevent or delay substance use, youth, adolescent substance use for as long as possible. So we know the earlier somebody starts using, the more likely they are to develop chronic issues with dependence. And so everything that we do from kindergarten through 12th grade really supports what you're talking about. I did want to share my screen really quick. So this just came from our friends at the Snohomish Health Department. The DEA shared an alert today. I thought it was worth noting in light of this conversation. Oh, what screen is being shared? Can you see the DEA laboratory screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so just real simple headline here, but it's coming from DEA that their most recent testing reveals that 6 out of 10 fentanyl laced fake prescription pills now contain potentially lethal dose of fentanyl. So DEA is, let's see if we can follow this link here. They have a one pill can kill campaign. I haven't looked at this because it's just coming across my radar now. And so I have concerns about whether or not we're crossing the line into fear arousal. I want to evaluate this. And then Mary, this is what you're talking about, the multicolored pills that are winding up in the hands of juveniles. And so
And that kind of advertising looks enticing.
Yep.
So, Joe, can we table that for a more comprehensive conversation? Because given that we want to be anticipatory, it'd be good to get out in front of it to make sure that whatever is being done in terms of education and information is not increasing risk, that it's protective in nature.
Yep. Yes.
Because we all know that best intentions sometimes can lead to adverse consequences.
So this might be something that we take on pretty soon. Like, you know, the awareness is growing so much, media coverage is so widespread. I mean, we could host both like an evening session with local partners and neighbors and regional partners and neighbors to talk about what's effective in prevention messaging so that we don't actually engage in those counterproductive practices. So we're well positioned to do that. I mean, most of the state uses our material already. So we're just ready to go on that. If that's something we're interested in, I'm happy to set that up. For the purposes of this conversation, understanding emerging trends at Monroe High School and trends in the community with Maddie and our good sport Jacob. Any other question? Any final comments? All right. Well, great.
I did not get where Jacob's office is located.
Yeah, I put the address in the chat, but I'm right.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
I'm right across from the fish and chip place in the building with the driving school and all that.
On Main Street?
Yeah, on Main Street.
Easy to find.
Yep.
And do you mind if I ask just really quickly to Maddie or Jacob, if you guys have any? I've got teenage kids at Monroe High School. So if kids are hiding pens from parents, what kind of questions, what kind of things could we ask our kids? Just point blank, are you vaping? Or what would you say would be kind of some good methods for a parent?
So I probably wouldn't ask them point blank if they're vaping or not, because most of the time they won't even tell me that if I ask them. So it takes a lot of, when I'm working with students, a lot of building rapport. And as their parent, you probably already have some rapport with them and some trust with your student. But that being said, the biggest thing I can encourage parents is to have open and honest conversations with them. The more that you allow conversations to happen around drug use and set the expectation that you have around drug use, the more willing they're able to talk to you about it. So if you're like, hey, I'm wondering like how your friends are, and maybe talking about peer pressure, and maybe that conversation leads to like, have your friends ever pressured you to do anything such as drugs and alcohol? And then that can lead into a conversation. And if you just start the conversation with like, let's talk about drugs, they might not necessarily talk to you about it. But if you start the conversation like how are things going with your friends, and that evolves into something else, or even asking them about like, hey, what are some things that you've seen happening at the school that maybe you don't like, or things that you feel pressured to do because you see everyone doing them. And that's honestly just a perception question. Not everyone does drugs, but a lot of students see it that way as perception. So those might be some good questions to ask.
Yeah, and I might add that I think just people in general, and maybe Dennis can speak to some of the psychological components of this type of thing, but just as people, when we're doing something we think is wrong, which is what's happening with these kids, and hence the reason why they're not disclosing it, right? They internally think it's wrong. The longer that goes with kind of being a secret, the more shame grows and worse behavior gets. So it could be what's hard for parents is they're so emotionally tied to the situation, right? So they can't be an objective party in it. But there may be value in some sort of like an amnesty time where they are able to come clean with no consequence. I think that's some of the fear, is that they're gonna come clean and then they're gonna be even more shamed, right? And so if there's some sort of amnesty time where they're able to basically tell you any secrets without any consequence or shame, like a shame-free time, I don't know, something specific, that could be helpful too.
I've noticed that over the years that most kids will tell their parents what they think their parents can handle. And that's pretty basic, and parents don't want to hear that because they want to think they're open to everything. But Jacob, you just nailed it. Why they don't tell their parents, because the parents flip out. They don't know, I did a residential drug program years and years ago, and we'd have, we were dealing with people coming out of prison, and we'd have parents found a bong in the sock drawer and brought the kid in and wanted to put him in a residential treatment program. Well, so what can the parents handle is always going to be, and that's why you lie. I have to lie because my parents can't handle the truth.
Jacob, actually, one of my students had that no shame time where it's like anything goes with her parent, and she absolutely loves it. And the parent's able to be honest with the student, and the student's able to be honest with the parent. And she talks about her substance use with her mom, and it's the best thing and the thing that's keeping her accountable in her recovery from using. So that's actually a really great thing that I've seen work, and that's just one example of it.
Yeah, right.
To bring this back to the coalition, so this is a strategy that's always embedded within our strategic plan, which means it gives us flexibility. One of the media campaigns that we're running at the Galaxy Theater right now is Under the Influence of You, which was developed by the State Department of Health. And its goal is to give brief tips for how parents can engage their children in conversations around this. We also collect data around this every year in the annual community survey, whether or not parents of 6th and 12th graders feel that they've had conversations about their rules and expectations and values around substance use, which is a different topic when your child's individuating. But we also ask a similar question on the healthy use survey that asks if parents have talked with you about their expectations around substance use. And when we find in the data consistently over the years, when we look at our annual community survey and healthy use survey, that a lot more parents think they're talking to their children about drugs than children who think their parents are talking to them about drugs. So there is this barrier and stigma and awkwardness, and this is something that we could do too. I'm sure if we wanted, Maddie and I could put our heads together with the leadership team and maybe put together an evening session or something where we just broach this conversation with parents. I think there's a lot we can do, and we certainly have articulated a desire to put the community back in the community coalition, and a parent campaign or workshop or town hall or conversation that really focused on equipping parents to have these conversations is the bread and butter of prevention for all of time. And the data is still really clear that even more than friends or social media, parent conversation has the most influence on a young person's decision to use substances, not including how trauma may play a role. And then the other comment I wanted to offer, it just jogged a memory for Maddie talking about Project Success being primarily a harm reduction approach. Depending on your point of view, you may cringe or be excited to hear that. But I was very influenced in this realm about 10 years ago when I attended an evidence-based youth treatment program training. And they talked about why they supported a harm reduction approach prior to abstinence. And the presenter, he just to this day has influenced me, but he's like, imagine if we held a depression group for youth who have reported suicidal ideation, and we bring out these resources, we're ready to support them, but we have one condition: before you join our group, you have to stop being depressed. That's the only requirement. And so even though we don't operate with that perspective in mental health, we acknowledge depression is something we need to work through and we need to build coping skills around. In substance abuse, the opposite is true, especially with youth, right? If you're going to engage in these services, if you're going to come to school and access our supports, you have to be abstinent before we can help you. And so the policy, the disciplinary response still reflects that criminalization of youth substance use rather than acknowledgement of the disease model. And this is something else I've been talking about both internally in the district and starting to plant seeds with the leadership team around is it's time to look at the substance abuse policy and disciplinary, the disciplinary or the policy violation standards, and see what we can do to start bringing support around to actual support, not pseudo criminalization of youth substance use before they have help. So I'm going to stop talking and just open this up for any last comments before we move on in the agenda. Okay. Oh, Dennis Smith.
Oh, you're muted, Dennis.
You're on mute, my friend. You're still on mute.
Thank you. Want to let people know about the near collaborative webinar that's coming up next Wednesday on the 15th. It's the ACES quarterly sponsored event, and it's you can sign up online, register for it. It's going to contain context around opioid use and overdose in Snohomish County, understanding the relationship between ACEs and opioid use, and examine the relevant risk and protective factors, and understand what Narcan is and learn how to use it to reverse an opioid overdose. So that's Tuesday. Let's see, that's Wednesday, February 15th from 3 o'clock to 4:30 p.m. And I can send you the registration if you are interested in that.
If you send that to me, I'll make sure it gets out.
Thank you.
That's the intersection of ACEs and substance use. Again, another area where we're passionate around. I actually wanted to hand this over to Amber Mehta. Amber is a founding member of the coalition. She's one of our student support advocates. She's part of our behavioral health team, which our behavioral health team really exists because of the coalition and the resources we've been able to leverage. as a result of our work. Amber brought a proposal to the behavioral health team that I thought she should bring to us to see if we have an interest in supporting. Amber, it's yours.
Thank you. Yeah, so every June, the Monroe Public Schools Foundation has an award ceremony for seniors who are graduating and going to college. And most of you probably know it, where they give out scholarships to those students who have applied for that. And I know that there has been like this year they even had mentors come in and help those applicants. And so it's getting to be pretty, it's expansive. And so one of the things I thought, because I know different groups, anybody can give, like I could do it myself, right? But I don't have enough money. So that's what I'm bringing up, is that I would love to collaborate. Like I brought it to the attention of our behavioral health team, because we do have a big, large team. And I thought we could all maybe donate a little, you know what I mean, as much as we could, and then be able to present somebody who applied with a scholarship. And then Joe expanded it and was like, let's bring it to our whole team. Like he said, we wouldn't exist without this team. And the way that the Monroe Public Schools Foundation sets that up is they actually just have a link specifically. So it wouldn't be me collecting money or someone collecting money, it's them. It's directly to an earmark portion for what we would be presenting. So it's specifically for our team. And we do just have like some recommendations on what the applicants would be, like what the direction they would be going in educationally. And so that we wouldn't be looking at like 100 applicants, but we're looking maybe like at 10 or 12. And I thought specifically because it was behavioral health or community coalition, it would be somebody or individual. It depends on how many, sorry, I didn't mean to say individual, multiple, how many applicants or how much money really that we are able to raise, and be directed towards somebody going into like human services, like social work or mental health, somebody who wants to work in housing, things like that. So I just thought I would see if anybody had any other ideas on requirements, or if they thought that would be such an awesome idea and they would be love to join us.
So I asked Amber to bring this to us, not asking anybody to make an individual financial commitment, but we talk so often about the depleted workforce in suburban and rural communities like ours. And, we go out of our way to create contractual relationships, a memorandum of understanding relationships and agreements with providers so we can get site-based services here. What does it look like if we also start growing the workforce, right? Like, I don't know. So that's why it was. So I'm wondering if there's any support for us promoting a behavioral health scholarship, and if you have any ideas around that, or if this isn't the right time for that. So just totally opening the floor, but Amber's one of us, and so I love this idea personally, and wanted to know if I can put the coalition behind it.
I think in terms of, I better raise my hand.
I see ya.
One of the things that we want to increase is participation as community partners and advocating for youth and promoting careers that are aligned with our strategic goals as a coalition. I think it makes a lot of sense. I love the idea.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts? Okay, well, I'm not seeing any thumbs down. Oh, I see Chris Gray.
I just want to say yes to what Mary just said. Yes, I think this is right up our alley, and this would be a positive thing that we could contribute. And I love the idea too.
Thank you.
Aubrey.
And are these scholarships for kids going into college usually, or what do the scholarships usually go towards.
Yeah, they could be going really into any like pathway towards after, high school. So it could be a trade school or anything.
Okay, awesome. Would it be appropriate? I know this sounds like weird, but I know we want to benefit mental health. Would it be appropriate to, oh no, but like, I'm just trying to think of supporting those who maybe struggle with their mental health and wanting to go and pursue, higher education. But that, I think that would get tricky, you know what I mean?
Thought about that too. I thought, oh, maybe it could be somebody we've served. And I was like, no way, we can't do that. How could we, you know what I mean? Expose them.
Yeah, that's tricky, right? Yeah.
I thought about that too.
So a couple of issues will come up then. So what that means is we'll be having applications from students who are applying for a behavioral health scholarship. And we'll need a small team to help us review those applications to decide on who the awardees are. We probably want to be careful in encouraging people to share their story. They will automatically, but we've had a situation develop over the years where students have disclosed deep abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, parental substance use that have required us to make CPS reports after reviewing the applications because we're mandated reporters. And so we'll just want to be careful around what we're asking folks to respond to. Amber, is it okay if we bring back a proposal to the coalition with the criteria or something over the coming weeks? We'll do it through email so that we're not tied down.
Yeah.
What's your timeline?
My timeline is nice. Well, our timeline
Joe,
is
from my experience with the scholarship committee, the Monroe Public Schools Foundation collects all of the scholarship applicants, and it's a consolidator. So they fill out one application and it's for multiple scholarships. So I don't think you can be specific, and you can be specific in what you're looking for, but you can't ask for something specific. Does that make sense?
Well, we used to do it and we would say only Frank Wagner students. Like, I only want to look at these Frank Wagner student applications.
Right. So when they're applying, they're not answering your specific questions about.
Right. No, they're not doing that.
Right.
It's just like, oh, are you going to go to the University of Washington and you want to go to get your, whatever, like that.
Yeah.
There's along the same vein, there's the UW has this apprenticeship thing that they're doing. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but it's pretty neat where they're basically like an employer like myself. They will like, I pay my employee, but that employee gets a level of education and will get college credits after a year, and they have year or 2 years. They have a behavioral technician track, they have a peer counselor track, and they have a substance use disorder professional track. It's kind of a neat program if you wanted to look into that and see if something like that could be done locally too.
You said a behavior tech track, a peer counselor track, and a substance use disorder.
Yeah, SUDP track.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
The SUDP track is 2 years, and then the other two are 1 year, and then they graduate those with college credit.
Cool.
And this only says the payment is due May 1st. They don't have like a confirmation. Like, I'll ask them specifics if we have to know, like, yes, we are doing it. I'll ask them specifically for that. And then just to be clear too, it could be go to a Leaders in Learning or somebody from Sky Valley Education Center.
So I think this will be a great pilot year, and getting involved in this, there's going to be a learning curve, and maybe other opportunities will present itself. But yeah, I mean, I think we can move forward with this pilot and then really consider next fall how we want to approach this. I mean, I just love the idea of supporting and growing a local workforce. And I hadn't heard, Jacob, of the UW apprenticeship program before either. And I'm wondering, what is the opportunity to help support peer counselor or peer what's the language? for
Certified peer counselors.
certified.
Yeah, yeah, and they're working off a grant right now, but I'm sure there's different models that could work without a grant.
Yeah, I love this. I love this. So another point for discussion today, since we've got you, is leadership team's been engaging in conversation around resuming in-person meetings or continuing to hold only online meetings or a hybrid. And so I'm wondering if you would share, oh, dang it, before I do that, I wanted to acknowledge, I'm so sorry, I wanted to acknowledge Sharon. Thanks for joining us, and Tammy and Chief Jolly and Pastor Hanford, welcome. Chief Jolly made time for us, even though he had a conflict. I let Chief Jolly know about our interest in hearing a law enforcement update, both in terms of what he's seeing with regard to substance use, but I also asked Chief Jolly to share any good news or exciting events that are going on, because when I read the Chief's update on the website, there's so many exciting things happening. I just want to make sure that we're not solely focused on the substance use aspect of the work that Chief Jolly is engaging in. Chief Jolly, if you're there, can I give you the floor?
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. Well, there, I'll ruin your picture and show my face, but I appreciate you spending a minute with me. I just came from the pastor's lunch and we were talking about some similar things, and you know, we have some good outreach going. We're still dealing with issues we wouldn't prefer to deal with, homelessness, mental health, substance abuse. Those are community problems, but unfortunately there's not many people to fill those voids and gaps. But we're pretty proud of the work we're doing and the interdiction that we're able to secure housing for a significant amount of our population. I got the numbers a little wrong in the previous meeting, but total county-wide, you know, we've been able to secure 198 residents for people, you know, housing secured for people. So we own about a third of that, as well as 121 completions of substance abuse treatment. And so again, about a third of those are Monroe, and that's pretty good work for a small police department. I think that it's really not our main mission and the thing that we should be focusing on, but you know, unfortunately there's not a lot of agencies that are going to go out in the field and grab people and do the kind of work and fill that void. The one thing I would be concerned about is some of the legislation that's going on down in Olympia. They're talking about the Blake fix, which is drug possession and drug laws. One thing I would be concerned about is if it goes away and drug possession becomes legal in our state, then the police are unable to interdict or do anything or have any of those contacts I just talked about, and which are drugs. That's the major reason. That's the starting point, how we can get people some treatment and get them before our new community court and have some successes, giving people options with some accountability behind it. We're a little concerned that that may be taken away from us, as well as some of the Ninth Circuit federal laws taking away any restrictions against homelessness. So in other words, we couldn't hold any accountability or clear our parks out or prevent sidewalk encampments from popping up. And you know, there's some real concerns in the next 6 months. Some of the tools that we use to just keep the livability at a certain level may go away. So while we are doing a lot of good work and we are able to impact a lot of people and direct people towards housing and treatment and mental health counseling, we may be out of the business pretty quick because of legislation and court rulings. So a little bit concerning for us. But we're going to be optimistic and hold our heads up and hope for the best. And we're going to support our community partners and partner with the community. That's on all our cars. We're partnering for a strong community, and we're going to continue doing everything we possibly can to make people's lives better and keep the livability at a good level. So a lot going on in our world, and it's it all kind of hangs in courts and legislation right now. So that's what's up.
I see you, Chris. Did you have a question or comment?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Chief Jolly? We're so privileged that he gives us his time. I see all these nods. We're grateful for you, Chief. So Chief, earlier we talked about kind of the youth intervention and prevention and adult treatment landscape. We have a new partner on, Jacob Grillo, who engages in treatment on Main Street, and it's just it's been a good coalition meeting, I think, so far, just hearing what's going on. We also saw that the DEA released a report that found that more than half of the fentanyl-laced prescription medicines that they're testing have potentially lethal doses inside. And so we continue to be concerned both about the impact of opioids in the community, the handcuffs being placed on law enforcement, and we're really considering ways to re-engage parents in terms of equipping them and getting some messages out there. So that's what you missed earlier. But thank you.
Well, I always enjoy being here with this group and listening to things, and I'm sorry I was distracted today. You know, any time a substance, whether it's alcohol at one spectrum or any type of drug or some substance that causes addiction, making it easier or allowing it to be accessible to our youth is not a good recipe, whether it's a fifth in your liquor cabinet or, you know, whatever substance it may be. And it is concerning if the police are going to be out of the drug interdiction business, that there's someone there to fill that accountability and legal void. But I appreciate all the good work that's going on with this group and our nonprofits and our substance abuse and mental health counselors. So without that, I don't know what line there would be. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. If there are no other questions for Chief Jolly this month, I did want to engage you in, oh, Mary Myers. I'm sorry, it's so tiny for me.
Chief Jolly. I did have a question. What is it? Oh, what's driving this potential legislation, both in the area of drug interdiction and homelessness restrictions?
Well, a couple of years
They
ago,
both just, go
a
ahead.
couple of years ago, the Supreme Court in Washington State came down with a ruling that drug possession was unconstitutional in the way it was written because it was a felony to possess drugs. The legislature did a temporary fix in which they made it knowingly possess drugs, which is fair, and it would be a misdemeanor. So that worked out well. However, it has an expiration date of June 30th of this year. And so I think the goal among some that may have influence and power in that is to just let it go away and revert back to the old law, which means it's unconstitutional and there's no drug enforcement. So I certainly don't believe that we need to warehouse people for drug abuse, homelessness, mental illness in any way, shape, or form. But if we're one of the few people that are actually able to hold the line in some of those areas and we actually have positive results, unless you have a great option to fill that void, I don't know what to do. But I think this is just agenda driven. So,
Thank you.
you bet.
Okay, so just wanted to, and I don't need to call on you, just unmute yourself and share your opinion. We don't mind if we talk over each other here, we're family. So about the question of in-person, hybrid, or just remaining online, would you mind sharing your opinion and preference? Chris, what do you think? Is it easier for you to join from home?
Yeah, I mean, sure it is, but I don't know if the the product of the meeting is as good as in person. I think we do a better job face to face.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's easier if I can just sit here and not have to drive somewhere. But, you know, I also want it to be well worth my time. So not that this isn't, but, you know, we need to get the most, you know, bang for the buck, you know, for our time.
You know, one of the things I miss, and I see Aubrey, is after the coalition meeting, people were hanging out for up to an hour for years and years and years, just following through on new networking opportunities, partnerships. That networking, both formal and informal, was a big part of how we advanced our work and connections. And so that's been gone for a few years. Aubrey.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, maybe there's a sweet spot in the hybrid, because I feel like, at least just from my perception, first of all, I love in person. I love that personal connection. And so I think there is such power in that. But also I'm just noticing that there's so many people actually at a job when they hop on. And so I think we might miss a lot of people who are between a session or at the school or whatever they're doing. So maybe like a hybrid might be a good idea with power of connection, plus we can still reach all those people who are in the middle of their work day who maybe couldn't pop all the way over to the school district office.
You know, to that point, we have Chief Jolly, and we had Jacob able to join us from his office today. Chris Jury, who's in Anacortes. We've been able to have greater support from the health district. We have Sharon and Tammy here, who probably wouldn't be able to join us during the day from Park Place Middle School. So yeah, I hear your point there. Other thoughts, Maddie? Or
I always prefer in-person meetings, because I think, Chris, what you were saying, it's much more productive. You get a lot more possible better outcomes from meetings when they're in person. And I also enjoy in person because if I'm not in my office, I don't have a kid knocking on my door trying to get in. And the last couple of meetings, I wasn't even able to make it to, because right before a kid hopped in my office, and it just kind of kept going that way. So if I'm separated from the school and can just leave a note on the door saying like, hey, I have a meeting, I'll be back at this time. That's just a boundary place for myself so I could attend the meeting.
I think there's a welcoming for new people that is, you just can't beat as in person. You can, like you say, you can follow up with something afterwards. You can welcome them, you know who they are. It would be harder, I would think, to join something when you've never been there. And we probably have half the people now like that, so.
so what I'm hearing is both the acknowledgement that in person is our best option, and that moving forward in some hybrid capacity is the best way to maintain the level of inclusion that we've been able to experience here. If we do, so what I'll do is I'll check in with our tech department and see if there are any technologies that can help us. I'm just curious about what's out there, and if there have been some cool things to make facilitating hybrid meetings easier. Probably what I'll end up coming back to is an ask for co-hosts. So as we're going through the meeting together, I don't have to do double duty, both monitoring online. And like Mary Myers, you have been my model for inclusive conversation for over 10 years now. It's so easy for me not to look at the screen, and you're so good at being aware of where everybody is and drawing them into the conversation. I'm going to lean on you, or I need you to train some clones. Like, that's a sixth sense you have for inclusion. So
Thank you, Joe.
I think what we'll do then is in March, we'll host our first hybrid meeting. And if you can be here in person, that would be amazing. And if you cannot, we're going to make sure that it's inclusive of you wherever you're at. Scary to say it. It's so exciting too.
Hey, Joe, I have one ask.
Tammy Amador, yes.
Back in the day when we met in person, there were snacks. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yes, there were. Yes, there were. And
Tammy, I'll look forward to your cookies for the March meeting. Thank you for offering.
You got it.
And we'd get the Girl Scouts at
Yeah,
the
there
right
you
time
go.
of the year.
I know they'd bring the
That
cases
time.
of cookies. It was awesome. It's so funny too, because social hosting is one of the areas that we're not allowed to fund. Like we literally really can't buy snacks for a coalition meeting unless it exceeds 4 hours in duration. And then we're allowed to spend up to $1.50 a person. So we probably cover water. In the state's wisdom, that's the best way to ensure that prevention dollars focus on prevention, but it kind of overlooks the communal and cultural aspect of eating together and breaking bread together. And so we'll find our way. But Tammy, man, I'm always so glad when you can join us, Tammy. Oh, you're one of us, like founding member in the house.
Back at you, Joe.
Yeah, you've come back to the fold, Tammy.
Joe, can you just remind some of the newbies where here is when we meet in person?
Yeah, so we'll make sure that goes out in our communication too. But here is at the district administration office. We have some beautiful community rooms now, and I really want to maximize using those. So we have the space. Let's do it. And those rooms have windows, unlike my office. So might shy away from the sunlight. Who knows? I did have a piece of news I wanted to share for you. I'm sorry, specifically around some funding. So when I met with the leadership team last week, we talked about having some unspent mental health promotion and suicide prevention funding. That grant is very restricted in how it can be used. The reason we have some unspent funds being projected for the end of this year is because one of the primary strategies we identified in that grant, the Check and Connect program that's being implemented in middle school and elementary schools in one capacity or another, the training was very expensive. It was around $1,400 per participant. And so we budgeted for having training unfold over a 2-year cycle. Well, what happened right before we were ready to schedule training last year was the University of Minnesota, the sole provider of that training, provided an online option, and the price dropped from $1,400 per person to $225 per person. So we have substantial unspent funding here. Our choice as a coalition is to either find something within the approved programs list, and it's a very small list, or to return it to the state for another community to use. And I happen to be in a conversation, so you're probably aware of this, but maybe not super highly aware of it. But a number of years ago, we developed a mental health access campaign targeting Hispanic and Latino males in the community, because our conversations around the disparity in depression rates between Hispanic and Latino students and all others was pretty broad. And so it appeared that to me on the outside, like our Spanish-speaking families weren't aware or weren't being very successful in accessing the resources that and partnerships we've helped to put in place over the years. And what kind of came out was it was more of a cultural issue, where as soon as husbands, fathers, brothers, uncles learned that families were engaging in these services, they interfered with them and basically put a stop to widespread family access. And it didn't just trickle over into the freely available resources that are on site at our schools, but also when we'd arrange pro bono services with private practice providers in the community. As soon as dad learned or grandpa learned, it was over. And so we ended up working with our Spanish-speaking community who were represented at the Parent Hub at the time to write a trauma-informed approach grant that would allow us to explore this and develop language around increasing mental health access and kind of overcoming cultural stigma. And what emerged was new language for us that Hispanic and Latino males across the span of life, because we interviewed ninth graders all the way up to elders. We found that largely the community was unwilling to discuss mental health services because it made them look like they were less than men. There's a level of machismo there, or masculinity, that was diminished when their peers discovered that they didn't have control over their families. They didn't want to be labeled as having a loco family or loco children, because that would diminish them. And so with them, we were able to map out alternative language. And what really resonated from this group was the ability to focus on developing mental strength. And so we actually have an entire mental health access campaign called Let's Be Better. Let's be better fathers, let's be better brothers, let's be better uncles and siblings, that was developed by the men who were in these focus groups with us, that we've suspended launching because there's nowhere for them to turn to right now. So we didn't want to launch an access campaign when there's no access, especially if they were taking the risk to reach out for the first time or support their family in reaching out for the first time. Okay, so now fast forward to a conversation with our principal at Frank Wagner Elementary, and he's talking about classroom behaviors and a lot of challenges that they're having. And Frank Wagner happens to benefit from a number of services that the coalition has put in place: PAC's Good Behavior Game, Student Support Advocate Program, our McKinney-Vento specialist and Becca specialists are there frequently. Our behavioral health specialist is there. The mental health partnerships running small groups with students there now. So a variety of services. And what the principal's encountering is dads are still getting in the way and preventing families from accessing their on-site services. So it's become even more personal to him. And what he shared was a story about how he's been trying to engage dads who are obstructing access. You know, he shared that they were very willing to talk about why they left Mexico or their country of origin, and really passionate about what they wanted for their children. But when he started talking to them about, and he came to the conclusion that it's because even though our principal there will acknowledge that he's an immigrant himself and immigrated here with his parents in childhood, his level of educational attainment and his position as principal has Americanized him too much to be able to bridge that gap between the world these men have come from, the world they want for their kids, and the ability to access helping services that are right at their door. And so in popcorning that conversation with him, kind of what emerged is, well, what if you're not in that position? If we develop outreach strategies that place Spanish-speaking males in front of other Spanish-speaking males and families, again, talking about at the beginning, the world they came from and why they came to the United States and Monroe, the world they want for their kids, and then kind of bookended it with how they can access services and ask for help with their families without having these labels put on them, and really make them that connection that these services are there so they can realize the world they want for their kids. And so pitched an idea to our funder, the Washington State Healthcare Authority, about doing video outreach and hiring a documentary crew or a videographer to come in and sit with men who are willing to share their story in Spanish, and really put together a tool where, whether you're coming into kindergarten registration night and seeing this, or meeting one-on-one with a student support advocate, or accessing food or services that take the next step, we could really make this tool available where it's Spanish-speaking immigrants talking to other immigrants about what they fled, what they want, and how to bridge those services. And the state's response, long story short, was, let us know if you need more money to make this happen, which, is pretty unusual. So I wanted to come to you and let you know that I did speak with the leadership team about this. Leadership team seems supportive, and this is something that will probably get going here. And wanted to make you aware in case you have an opinion or feedback, want to sit in on helping to identifying trusted partners who might know men who are willing to be vulnerable in this way. Anything. I mean, so I took care of the financing part. Now it's back to the coalition. So any concerns or other feelings about a project like this to help increase access to helping support? I hear no concerns.
Oh, I guess my only concern is getting it out there. Do dads come to the kindergarten night? You know what I mean? Like finding, I think it's an awesome idea. I think it's just absolutely great. I think, but getting it to the men population, how do we do that? Like, I don't know. I would just be interested to see like the strategies of finding a place where they can see it and have access to it. But I think that's a great idea. And I have a couple of male, I think they're both from Mexico in mind that might be good candidates for just talking to. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, that approach starts with acknowledging that I'm not the right person. I'm the right cheerleader, but not the right person to bridge trusted relationships, and thinking, we definitely need to speak with Father Phil at St. Mary's and with our partners at Take the Next Step, who really are trusted in working with this community, with our principals and teachers who may have trust relationships. Yeah, I just need to make it bigger than me. I can do the behind the scenes, but the actual work, I'm not the right person for that. Any other thoughts, concerns, recommendations? All right, we'll look for this. I'll keep you up to date, and we're on a kind of quick turnaround time because the funding evaporates on June 30th. And so we'll see what we can do with high quality here. Otherwise, the other component of the agenda that we haven't addressed is social media, but let's save that for next month because there's still details I need to flesh out for us. And even though she's not on here with us, I will say that Maddie Louder, who's been joining leadership team meetings in just kind of casual conversation with us, dropped really for me the most profound statement, which is, social media is the new community. And if we're talking about putting community back in the community coalition, what does that mean for us? And there's an intersection of things that are happening where I'm talking about how factionalism and curated outrage and frictionless information sharing on social media have actually lowered most communities' prevention readiness after the pandemic. And so all of this is kind of coming to a head here. And, for the first time, we have data on how internet usage is impacting students in Monroe, courtesy of the Healthy Youth Survey. So we'll save that for next time. I wonder if Tom might, since we're at 2:30, leave us with some parting words of wisdom.
Well, I don't have any words of wisdom, but I want to really thank you, Joe, for look like you're on your A game today, and you just got some great things on the burner. So I look forward to March, and we'll, that was a good question of where is here, because if you just say the district office, there may be people don't even know you moved. So
yeah,
But so I look forward to that, and it's good to, it just feels like we're getting things back together. So congratulations to everyone here. Thank you.
Well, I love this coalition and I'm so grateful for you guys. I'm going to stop the recording and say goodbye.